You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for April 22nd, 2025. It's not safe for work.
And we're recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where, as of right now, it looks like we're going to have a special guest on Thursday, who I find a little intimidating. Hint, behind the music with Ross Douthat. No, I'm not going to do that. I swear I won't do that to you. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
It is not Ross Douthat. Ross Douthat is very busy testifying in the Sarah Palin trial.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He's got things to do.
Today, apparently, or yesterday, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Sarah Palin lost her case against the New York Times.
Oh, no. Really?
Yeah. But wow. Ross Douthat was there to testify. So it's not going to be Ross Douthat on the Professional Left podcast. You will not be disappointed to hear. We are having a special guest. It is very exciting. We're excited to have this person. We don't do guests very often, but we could not pass this one up. Mm-hmm. And you'll see on Thursday. You'll hear it on Thursday, and that's all we have to say. If I don't blow it, Blue Cow. Yeah. This person might break up with you before then, but
could be.
I don't know. You might make this person mad.
That happens all the time.
All right, and enough tease. We're all set with that. But you'll find out on Thursday, and we have to start with me speaking as the official Bible bitch of the Professional Left podcast. It is my duty to note that Pope Francis has passed away, and to honor his memory, we suggest that you stay at least 1,000 yards away from any MAGA social media, because man, they hated that guy.
They sure did.
And the idea that the Pope died and so you're going to go on Fox and say he's going to hell is not scriptural.
That's really not scriptural.
Not scriptural. But look, we're not Roman Catholic. I mean, neither one of us is. So we don't get a vote or a say about who the Pope is. But Pope Francis was, by all accounts, the best Pope in our lifetimes. He was quite modern by Roman Catholic Church standards. Mm-hmm. He did leave a lot of the doors of the church closed, especially women in the priesthood. But he preached tolerance, openness, and humility. And for a 2,000-year-old institution that refused to officially acknowledge that Galileo was right until 1992...
It's a fact.
That's really quite something. We are hoping that he was able to winnow out some of the nastier cardinals.
Yeah.
We've watched Conclave a couple times. Mm-hmm. And I hope the next pope is not a right-wing asshole. Let's put it that way.
Rigged election. Rigged
election, yeah. Mm-hmm. And Pope Francis's last official act was to tell J.D. Vance to take it up with Jesus because the Pope don't have time for his bullshit.
Yes, and that...
Yeah. He had a deputy of his preach to J.D. Vance and his wife about compassion. So, in honor of Pope Francis's relatively irreverent and inclusive attitudes, here's a song that we like to believe Pope Francis listened to and laughed about in private.
First you get down on your knees, fiddle with your rosaries, bow your head with great respect and genuflect, genuflect, genuflect. Do whatever steps you want if you have cleared them with the pontiff. Everybody say his own Kyrie eleison, doing the Vatican rag. Get in line in that processional, step into that small confessional. They're the guy who's got religion'll tell you if your sin's original. If it is, try playing it safer. Drink the wine and chew the wafer. 2, 4, 6, 8. Time to transubstantiate. So get down upon your knees, fiddle with your rosaries, bow your head with great respect and genuflect, genuflect, genuflect. Make a cross on your abdomen when in Rome. Do like a Roman. Ave Maria. Gee, it's good to see you. Getting ecstatic and sort of dramatic and doing the Vatican rag.
So, Blue Gal, where exactly did you learn all your Bible bitch ninja tricks again?
The same place Tom Lehrer did.
Yeah, you
Drift
did.
Glass.
Yes. Yeah, he picked up
Tom
a couple.
Lehrer had a bachelor's and master's from Harvard University.
Yes, he did. Now, we talked about this, and I agreed with you that there's a certain kind of person, namely Tom Nichols. Well, you know, about the joke about how you know if someone went to Harvard, they'll tell you again and again and again.
Yeah, and I'm not that kind of person.
No.
And I don't. As far as I'm concerned, me attending Harvard Divinity School was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
So
It was that little building far away in the corner of the campus.
And it was on the corner of the campus on Francis Avenue, and I was not terribly happy while I was there. And I do not brag. It's not something I mention all the time. No, I don't.
But honestly, the degree of scholarship you bring to our Sunday school class, historical knowledge, context of things, you know, literary interpretations, literary analysis of text is incredibly impressive. You know, I honestly believe that the late Pope Francis would grant you special dispensation in mentioning that you're a Harvard alum, given that your name is also Francis. You know, hey, you had that in common. And Harvard is very much in the headlines this week, in case you hadn't noticed. And I believe you have a letter from them.
I do.
Well, proceed. Please proceed.
Yeah, I have a letter from Harvard University, and that is why we're bringing it up. Before we read the letter, let me give you some context. This is from the New York fucking Times. Quote, Trump officials blame mistake for setting off confrontation with Harvard. An official on the administration's anti-Semitism task force told the university that a letter of demands had been sent without authorization. Can we just stop there for a minute and explain to everyone that the president's anti-Semitism task force has nothing to do with U.S. anti-Semitism?
Right. At all.
At all.
Because if it did,
because
a whole lot of people
U.S.
on the right.
anti-Semitism is 100% MAGA people. People that set fire and shoot into Jewish temples in the United States are not liberals. This is about cleaning out universities of people who protest about Gaza.
Wait a minute. You mean the people who marched and said Jews will not replace us weren't a bunch
they're
of
not
Harvard?
they're MAGA people, Drift Glass. They're Trump supporters.
I thought they were all Harvard professors. That's my understanding.
Yeah, you would think they were all DEI elites, right? Yeah. No. So the fact that this administration has an anti-Semitism task force is about making Bibi Netanyahu happy that he can bulldoze Gaza for a hotel and do ethnic cleansing. That's what this is about. Okay. Harvard University received an emailed letter from the Trump administration last Friday that included a series of demands about hiring, admissions, and curriculum so onerous that school officials decided they had no choice but to take on the White House. The university announced its intentions on Monday, setting off tectonic battle between one of the country's most prestigious universities and a U.S. president. Then almost immediately came a frantic call from a Trump official. The April 11th letter from the White House's task force on anti-Semitism, this official told Harvard, should not have been sent and was unauthorized, two people familiar with the matter said. After Harvard publicly repudiated the demands, the Trump administration raised the pressure, freezing billions in federal funding to the school and warning that its tax-exempt status was in jeopardy. A senior White House official said the administration stood by the letter, calling the university's decision to publicly rebuff the administration overblown and blaming Harvard for not continuing discussions, unquote.
I mean,
they fucked up.
They fucked up. They said they fucked up. And then they got mad at Harvard for not going along with their fuck up. So we're gonna double down.
We're gonna double down, like they're doing with tariffs and everything else.
They're mobsters.
Dear
They're
leader
mobsters.
cannot be wrong.
Right.
So, yes, I get a letter from Harvard every year. And I read this to Drift Glass yesterday, and he said, oh, no, we do need to include this in the podcast. Because it says everything about what Trump is up against, what he's fighting,
and why.
the institution that he's decided to take on. April 2025, dear Harvard degree holder, the Board of Overseers, established in 1642, plays an integral role in the governance of the university. 1642.
Yeah, that's
when it started. All right, so then there's stuff about what it does, and we're unique in having alumni vote to make sure the Board of Overseers represents a wide range of people, etc. Okay, diversity, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then it says, this year, there is one more vacancy on the board than is typical. It was created by the early departure from the board of Mark J. Carney, who was elected on March 9th to become Prime Minister of Canada.
That just slew me.
And so then you open up the letter and it shows you everyone that's sitting on the board now and the candidates for Board of Overseer this year so that you can get to know something about them and decide who you want to vote for. And the candidates are, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just to give you an outline of who these people are. Michael Rosenblatt. Michael Rosenblatt served until recently as Chief Medical Officer of Flagship Pioneering, the venture firm that launched Moderna. And he was part of Moderna's vaccine team. Previously, he was Executive Vice President and Chief Medical Officer of Merck. And before that, Dean of Tufts University School of Medicine. As Merck's Senior Vice President for Research, he co-led development of the leading medicine for osteoporosis. The next candidate is Anjali Sood. Anjali Sood previously served as CEO of Vimeo, where she led a major expansion of the video hosting platform to become the leading developer of tools for video creators worldwide. Earlier in her career, she held positions in e-commerce and media at Amazon and Time Warner. Lanhee J. Chen is a public policy expert and educator with 4 Harvard degrees. Chen has served in presidential administrations of both parties and advised significant political campaigns, including as policy director of Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential bid. Mark Edwards, a public-spirited entrepreneur and nonprofit leader, is co-founder and CEO of Upstream USA, one of the nation's largest nonprofits working to reduce unplanned pregnancy by training healthcare providers to provide patient-centered contraceptive care. Mary Louise Kelly is co-host of All Things Considered. Nathaniel Owen Keohane is an internationally recognized leader on climate and energy policy, an economist whose career spans academia, government, and the nonprofit sector. He is president of the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions, a nonprofit organization that develops and advocates for ambitious and effective climate and energy policy. And finally, Courtney B. Vance. You might have heard of him. He's actor, producer, and performing arts leader. He won a Tony Award for his role in Nora Ephron's Lucky Guy, as well as Tony nominations for his performances in August Wilson's Fences and John Garay's 6 Degrees of Separations. He has won Emmys for his role in People vs. O.J. Simpson and Lovecraft Country. His film credits include The Hunt for Red October, The Tuskegee Airmen, The Preacher's Wife, and Lilo and Stitch. Okay, so those are the candidates for overseer of Harvard University for this year.
And let me just say, if a person has The Hunt for Red October on their resume, they have my vote. They absolutely have my vote.
A few years ago, John Lithgow ran for this.
Oh, crap.
So, I mean, it is...
No, I know. There's a celebrity on there.
Elite people doing elite things and volunteering to do this, to put Harvard Board of Overseers in their obituary. I mean, or whatever their motivation is connected. They're not paid to do this. It's not a paid position. It's not, they don't need none of these people need the money. And I get it. Chris Hayes writes a lot about this, that elites protect elites and elites talk with elites. And that's there's a wall around them. Mm-hmm. They may be doing a lot of good for the world, but they're still a club, right?
Right.
But the point of all of this is what Donald Trump has decided to it, because Donald Trump hates these. He's incredibly jealous of them. and is trying to blackmail them through Harvard, because even though he's the goddamn president of the United States, he has not gained a level of achievement compared to any of these people in his pathetic small life, and he never will.
Absolutely.
And it makes him mad.
Makes him mad. And he's got a club in his hand now.
Yeah.
And now he can beat people like this up. You know, this is the jocks against the nerds.
Mm-hmm.
And now the jock is president of the United States and a dumbass and a thug. And the nerds are still smart. And yeah, he picked the wrong fight. He really did pick the wrong fight.
He absolutely picked the wrong fight.
Yeah.
Because
but it was
from the initial lawsuit that Harvard is filing all the way up to the Supreme Court, there will be alumni of Harvard University looking at this case.
And I don't know where Harvard is going to get lawyers from. I'm not sure if they have access to a lot of legal help.
I don't know, Driftglass.
But I know that legal aid
I know they have lawyers on staff there, though.
Well, there is legal aid. There are pro bono lawyers that the state will provide if they wish. Anyway, by a wild coincidence, and this is a wild coincidence, yeah. I too am holding a letter in my hand. Listen, hear it? It's a real letter, piece of paper, which is also from a college that also starts with the letter H. It is, however, from the extreme opposite end of the spectrum. This is something called Imprimis or Imprimis, which is the publication of Hillsdale College. And it came in the mail for Junior Dude. And before I use it to start a cozy fire in our fire pit, I thought I would share it with the rest of the audience because it makes a perfect counterpart for your letter. This is cover article in Imprimis is What We Know and What We Don't Know About January 6th. And it's written by a guy named John Daniel Davidson, who is a senior editor at the Federalist. So you know what you're getting, people. You know what you're getting. And here we go. It's adapted from a talk delivered at Hillsdale College luncheon in Anchorage, Alaska on January 2025. This is our actual letter. Just hours after his inauguration on January 20th, President Trump pardoned more than 1,500 people convicted of offenses related to the events of January 6, 2021. He commuted the sentences of 14 additional people whose cases for a full pardon are still under review. Earlier that morning, to less fanfare, President Biden had issued preemptive pardons, a type of presidential pardon with no historical precedent, to all of the members and staff of the House Select Committee on January 6th, and to all the U.S. Capitol and D.C. Metropolitan Police officers who testified before that committee. What could better illustrate that happened on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th has become a political Rorschach test on which Americans remain deeply divided. Strap in, people. You're going to enjoy the next couple of paragraphs. Partisans on the left accept the official narrative that Democrats and the corporate press believing January 6th amounted to an insurrection and a violent attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Partisans on the right believe that however bad the events of that day were, the federal government reaction has been even worse, amounting to a weaponization of the Department of Justice to criminalize certain political views. Many ordinary Americans are left wondering what to believe.
I'm an independent.
This is targeted at those people, the dum-dums. With those Americans in mind, it's helpful to sift through what we have learned about January 6th over the past 4 years and to note the things that we still don't know. And here's where we will leave off. The official report of the House Select Committee, which runs to more than 800 pages, is too deeply biased to give much help. And it goes on and on like that.
Yeah.
And that is a college recruiting letter sent to young people to come here to say, look, partisans on the left, partisans on the right, no one knows what to believe, but dum-dums like you in the middle are confused. So come here and we'll tell you what to think at Hillsdale College. And what you should know is that everyone in this deep state is out to get you, and Donald Trump is a fucking saint, and that's all you really need to
do. Mm-hmm. And then life will be easy.
That's right.
He also goes through in that article the timeline of January 6th.
Yes.
And ignores the fact that Trump was in the White House dining room watching everything. He does not mention that.
Well, and it is very much in the vein of, you might remember this, the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act pitched to the dum-dums and in the pre-MAGA was, it's too big to read. You couldn't understand it. There's too much information there, page after page. Trust us. All you need to know is the angry black Kenyan usurper has put death panels in there to kill your white grandma. That's all you need to know. Don't read any of it. You don't need to read anything beyond that. All you need to know is that information, and you should hate that guy for doing that thing to your white grandma. Yeah. And it's the same goddamn thing. Oh, it's a very big book. You couldn't possibly read the whole thing.
800 pages of evidence against Donald Trump is what it is.
Is exactly what it is. But that's too biased because it doesn't show the other side.
The other side, that Donald Trump is completely innocent. And we didn't hear from Donald Trump at all until late in the afternoon when he told people to disperse and go home.
It was a day of love. It was a day of... And if you're interested, an actual timeline of post-January 6th Donald Trumpisms, on our last episode, we ran down the 4 or 5 moments in time where he went from it was a disgrace and a tragedy and should never have happened and violence is never going to be allowed to these people were all saints. They were all discriminated against. They deserve
patriots
pardons,
and saints.
And they deserve reparations, for God's sake.
Reparations now. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, we're going to switch gears now. Because as you know, across the Christian world, Easter is one of the big 3 days. Donald Trump went golfing on Easter. Did you know that, Driftglass?
Just like Jesus.
Christmas, Easter, and Pentecost are the big 3. And whether you believe Christ's resurrection is literally true or metaphorically true or is just nonsense and propaganda, but the chocolate bunnies and peeps are nice, celebrating renewal and rebirth during the spring is actually an ancient tradition that predates Christianity by thousands of years. So a lot of what we celebrate during Easter with eggs and flowers and baskets and so forth, Druids were doing that long before.
Well, just to share with our listeners, when I went out to take a little trash out today, I let the gate blow shut behind me, like I do sometimes. And I had to call my wife and say, honey, could you please let me in? Because I let the gate that I just installed.
It's a high gate, even for Driftglass. You can't jump over it.
I can't lift over. I can't lift the latch from the outside. But my wife joined me in our yard, and it's just a bloom with everything.
Oh, yeah.
It's just gorgeous.
Dogwoods and violets and you name it. It's just gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. And you can see why, after a long and dreary winter, that abundance suddenly springing into view would cause people to say, this is worth celebrating. This is rebirth. Yes. This says something about who we are and why we're on this world and what's going on.
The trees have flowers on them.
What's up with that? And it won't last very long.
No.
So you celebrate it while it's there. But it's the death of winter and the rebirth of spring. And that's as ancient as any other human tradition.
Yeah. And we loved walking back from that gate.
We did.
Through the violets and checking out the dogwood. And we have 4 blooming trees in the back. So, it's just lovely. So, here are a few excerpts from the Easter messages to the world from previous presidents. Ronald Reagan in 1981, quote, Passover is rich with tradition and symbolism. Its observance reminds us that the fight for freedom and the battle against oppression waged by Jews throughout their history is one of which all free people are a part. Beginning today and culminating on Sunday morning, Christians will celebrate with their families the resurrection of Christ, his victory over death. We will remember that he gave his body and his blood, washing clean the faults and the shortcomings of the world. In our rejoicing, we will renew the hope that is ours through the risen Lord. Unquote. Ronald Reagan didn't write that.
No, he did not.
No president wrote these things. We should mention that. Except maybe, the last one.
Except maybe Bill Clinton. Clinton was a writer.
He was a okay.
And Barack Obama is kind of a writer. But this is what presidents say. And this is Bill Clinton from 1996, and I'm cutting it way down because, Bill Clinton liked to talk. He would go on and on for a while. So this is just a little taste of his Easter message from 1996. Warm greetings to everyone celebrating Easter. In this age of great challenge and even greater possibility, Easter's timeless message strengthens us for the tasks before us. As we celebrate in churches and cathedrals, at sunrise services, and in family gatherings, we remember that our lives have great purpose and value. We recognize that the life and words of Jesus call to us works of caring and compassion, to giving more than receiving. His death and resurrection are powerful reminders of how God's grace is still at work in the world in which we live today. Hillary joins me in extending best wishes to all for a wonderful Easter celebration, unquote.
Barack Obama in 2016 noted he and his wife join our fellow Christians in observing Good Friday and celebrating Easter this weekend. This is a time to remember the sacrifices made for us and hold all who suffer close to our hearts. Yet it is also a time to rejoice, give thanks for the resurrection, and unite with Christians around the world in proclaiming, Christ has risen, he has risen indeed. We wish all who celebrate a blessed and joyful Easter, unquote. And Joe Biden said, quote, Holy Week has taken us on a journey from sorrow to salvation. As we reflect today on Christ's resurrection, we are reminded that with faith, hope, and love, even death can be defeated, unquote. Now, he was a very devout Catholic.
Devout, practicing Catholic his whole life.
Is still a very devout Catholic. Yeah.
And this was the official Easter greeting from the current president of the United States as delivered over Truth Social. From Donald J. Trump, and I'm sure he did write this, quote, Happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to bring murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, the mentally insane, and well-known MS-3 gang members and wife beaters back into our country. Happy Easter also to the weak and ineffective judges and law enforcement officials who are allowing this sinister attack on our nation to continue, an attack so violent that it will never be forgotten. Sleepy Joe Biden purposely allowed millions of criminals, all caps, to enter our country totally unvetted and unchecked through an open borders policy that will go down in history as the single most calamitous act ever perpetrated upon America. He was by far our worst, all caps, and most incompetent president, a man who had absolutely no idea what he was doing. But to him and to the person that ran and manipulated the auto pen, perhaps our real president, and to all of the people who cheated in the 2020 presidential election in order to get this highly destructive moron elected, I wish you, with great love, sincerity, and affection, a very happy Easter, unquote.
He's insane.
He's also a colossal asshole. He's just, there's nothing redeeming about this scumbag, which means there's nothing redeeming about the people who voted for him. There just isn't. They can't, there's nothing to them I find respectable, acceptable, socially worthwhile. They're just fucking horrible people.
And Jesus wept, Driftway.
And Jesus wept.
Jesus wept.
But of course, it's unfair to expect Trump to understand even very basic Sunday school stuff about Christianity because, after all, he's nothing but a lying, grifting, degenerate fascist who's only in office because his followers are bigots and imbeciles and, bigoted imbeciles. And his followers didn't love him for his theology anyway. They love him for the fact that he is the greatest businessman in history. And he's going to make them all obscenely rich.
Obscenely rich.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move from the spiritual to the temporal to ask the question, how is Mr. Fix the Economy on Day One businessman doing? After all, Trump was handed an awesome economy. The best post-COVID economy of any industrialized nation. Employment way up. Consumer spending way up. The markets way up and inflation coming down. From CNBC yesterday, quote, Dow slides more than 950 points as Trump rips Fed Chair Powell, igniting investor worries, unquote.
This is Paul Krugman, Nobel Prize winning economist Paul Krugman, reposting this from xe.com. I think that's pronounced Z, but I'm not sure. Quote, yesterday Bloomberg posted an article titled, Markets are discovering the real Trump trade is sell America. And that's about right. Look at the value of the dollar on international markets. For a while after the election, investors loved Trump. Not wisely, but too well. But in the face of one idiotic policy move after another, they've gradually fallen out of love and now seem to be capitulating. I think they still haven't faced up to how bad it is, but they'll figure it out. What we're seeing now is something familiar to those of us who have studied economic crises in other countries, usually, but not always, emerging markets. For this is looking more and more like a sudden stop. That's what happens when a country that has relied on large inflows of foreign capital loses the confidence of international investors. The inflow of money dries up, and the economic consequences are usually ugly. Trump inherited an economy in remarkably good shape. We had immaculate disinflation. The inflation spike of 2021 and 2022, largely caused by COVID-related supply chain disruptions, had faded away without a large rise in unemployment. But Trump wasted no time in squandering the hand he'd been given. unquote.
Now, because we do deep research in this podcast, we are going to read from the trade publication World Grain. This is from their March 28th, 2025 edition. Quote, proposed port fees could hammer U.S. ag, unquote. Because guess what? Once you've grown the stuff, you have to ship the stuff. So from this article, quote, Kansas City, Missouri, a series of new levies and restrictions proposed by the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative on importers and exporters that use Chinese-made ships could deal a significant blow to U.S. agriculture and transportation, according to an economic impact report commissioned by more than 30 industry groups. Among the report's findings, U.S. wheat exports could decline by more than 60%, and soybean exports by more than 40% if all the proposed actions were implemented. Paul Farmer, president and CEO of CSC Sugar LLC, noted in a recent letter to the trade representative that 60 to 65% of worldwide handy-sized tonnage is built in China. It is not commercially sensible to expect U.S. importers and exporters to operate without ever utilizing a ship that belongs to a fleet that includes Chinese-built or flagged vessels, Farmer wrote. Now listen to this statistic. This is again, the stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump and his people want U.S. farmers to ship their stuff on U.S. ships. That's the point. So no China ships. No ships from China.
We're going to charge the crap out of them just for using our ports.
Right. Of the roughly 21,000 vessels in the world's bulk shipping fleet, almost 50% were built in China. And only 5 ships, 0.2%, currently operating in the global fleet, were built in the United States.
Amazing. And
so, they can wait in line for those 5 ships to get their grain to market.
And come back.
That is not practical.
No, it's insane. It's insane. There is a global transportation system for a reason.
Yes.
And to suddenly arbitrarily say half the ships in that fleet we're not going to do business with, or we're going to charge the crap out of them is nuts. Is just nuts. And that is not just soybean farmers, like our neighbors here, or corn farmers. That's wheat and a bunch of other stuff that are going to get slaughtered by this kind of nonsense. But I did learn a new word today, and I love learning new words. In shipping, handy size refers to a smaller class of bulk carriers, typically with deadweight tonnage between 15,000 and 35,000 tons. So thank you for that. It'll be showing up on my blog at some point in the near future.
Size.
Handy size, which is just up from fun size, I think. I think that's right.
Uh-huh. Well, see, Driftglass is 6'8", and I'm 5'4.5" on a good day, so I guess I'm handy size.
You're handy size. You're my size, baby. You're just my size. And because we do the homework, I'm dipping right back into World Grain publication again. This is from the April 21st, 2025 issue. Up to the minute, people. Up to the minute. Quote, report China halts U.S. corn and soybean orders. Oh, great. China has not placed an order for U.S. corn and soybeans since January 16th, 4 days before the inauguration of U.S. President Donald Trump, Nikkei Asia reported, citing data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Trump, who during his first term as president sparked a trade war with China in 2018, has made good on his campaign promise to increase tariffs during his second term, not only on Chinese imports, but on products from many other countries as well. Trump has imposed tariffs of up to 145% on imports from China, which responded with a 125% tariff on products from the United States and vowed to, quote, fight to the end, unquote. The trade wars have cost the United States its position as China's number one soybean supplier. You cannot swing a dead cat in Springfield without hitting a soybean field. You can drive 100 miles in any direction and you'll find soybeans and corn all over the place. This is us. We're talking about us, our state and the Midwest here. Brazil has taken that spot, and Nikkei reported that Chinese negotiators traveled to Brazil last week to hold bilateral discussions to further expand imports to Brazilian soybeans. We run the risk of immediate impacts this growing season, along with the impacts of a prolonged trade war with China will inflict on our industry once again, said Caleb Ragland, president of the ASA. The short-term disruptions are painful, but the long-term repercussions to our reputation, our reliability as a supplier, and the stability of those trading relationships are hard to even put into words. We're still reeling from Trade War I and are certainly not thrilled about extending Trade War II, unquote.
But those rural voters voted for Trump.
They sure did. Well, last time.
Even after Trade War I.
Well, they got bribed, didn't they? Trump just carved out several $1 billion and bribed them and said, well, here, take the money instead. Just give me your votes. I'll give you money, because that's the sort of mentality. That's the only mentality you understand.
So this is from, and we're saying all of this to back up the fact that Trump did this.
He did this. This is him.
This is one person deciding to do this to our economy.
Who's the greatest businessman in the world?
Businessman.
Mm-hmm.
From Reason Magazine, April 18th, 2025, quote, Trump's tariffs are starting to kill jobs. Very briefly, Goldman Sachs estimates that the tariffs will create about 100,000 manufacturing jobs while destroying 500,000 others. In Pennsylvania, it's already starting. They go on to talk about layoffs at Mack Trucks, and it ends, as that dynamic plays out across the whole economy, the tariffs will create more losers than winners. The Goldman Sachs report published this week estimates that Trump tariffs, again, will create about 100,000 new manufacturing jobs, but will destroy 500,000 jobs elsewhere in the process.
Yeah, so it's bad, 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 bad. So, question is, how does Mr. Fix the Economy on day one, because he's super businessman, cope with very bad news coming in from everywhere, all of it caused by his own arrogant, impulsive stupidity? Well, the answer is the way he copes with everything else, by just lying about it. Lying all the time, lying every day.
Foxconn will invest in southeast Wisconsin, while a larger facility is constructed over the coming years. And that facility is currently under negotiation. It will be about the biggest there is anywhere. The company's initial investment of more than $10 billion will create 3,000 jobs at a minimum, with the potential for up to 13,000 jobs in the very near future.
I'm sorry, that was Trump lying about jobs and foreign investment 7 years ago. Our intern Jimmy screwed it up. And hey, do you remember what actually happened with Trump and Foxconn 7 years ago?
He and the administration promised a $10 billion investment by Foxconn to build a new manufacturing complex, create 13,000 new jobs. In fact, he came here with your Senator, Ron Johnson, literally holding a golden shovel, promising to build the eighth wonder of the world. Are you kidding me? Look what happened. They dug a hole with those golden shovels, and then they fell into it. They wasted hundreds of millions of dollars of your state and local tax dollars to promise a project that never happened. Foxconn turned out to be just that, a con. Go figure. My predecessor made promises which he broke more than kept, left a lot of people behind in communities like Racine. On my watch, we make promises and we keep promises.
Anyway, this is the correct audio. Sorry for that.
Obamacare is now on its last legs, fortunately. And through associated health plans, we're giving Americans the ability, just opened, millions of people going to be signing up, millions and millions. We're giving Americans the ability to join together to purchase much better and more affordable health care and health insurance, including bidding across state lines. So all of the insurance companies are going wild. They want to get it. You're going to have great health care at a much lower price. It will cost the United States nothing. Nothing. Think of that. Will cost us nothing. And
damn you, Jimmy. Wrong again. That was Trump lying about health care 6 years ago.
it's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
I am so sorry. I am sorry again. That was Trump lying about COVID 5 years ago. And that was one screw up too many, so we have sacked Jimmy. But don't feel bad for Jimmy. He's now one of the top 3 candidates to replace Whiskey Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense.
Congratulations, Jimmy.
Congratulations on the promotion, Jimmy. Our new intern, Janine, will now hand Blue Gal the article, and she will read it for you.
This is from CNN, April 17th, 2025. President Donald Trump has falsely claimed this week that grocery prices are going down and are down. In fact, grocery prices have continued to rise under Trump, and they were up even before he imposed near global 10% tariffs earlier this month. Trump's argument, Oil prices are down, groceries, even eggs are down, and the USA is getting rich on tariffs. He had similarly claimed on social media on Tuesday that the U.S. is taking in hefty tariff revenue, with the cost of almost all products going down, including gasoline, groceries, and just about everything else. But grocery prices are not down or going down. Average grocery prices were about 2.41% higher in March 2025 than they were in March 2024. Consumer Price Index data shows. This was the highest year-over-year grocery inflation rate since August of 2023, unquote.
Yeah. So if all this is ringing several dozen bells with you, it might be because many of us are finding citations from George Orwell's 1984 way, way too on the nose these days. So you're hearing them on a lot of podcasts. And that gaslighting about groceries is straight out of the Ministry of Plenty, which in the novel, you'll remember, is responsible
The Ministry of what? I'm sorry.
Ministry of Plenty.
The Ministry of Plenty. Okay.
Yeah, mini plenty. Mini true, mini plenty, mini peace. Those are the three ministries. And they're all in charge of doing the opposite of what they're titled. In the novel, it's responsible for rationing food and supplies to the citizens of Oceania in order to keep them in poverty. And they also run this lottery where it never actually pays out any winnings to anybody. So this is from the novel 1984, Part 1, Chapter 5, Keep Trump's lying about groceries in mind here. Quote, for the moment, he had shut his ears to the remoter noises and was listening to the stuff that streamed out of the telescreen. It appeared that there had been a demonstration to thank Big Brother for raising the chocolate ration to 20 grams a week. And only yesterday, he reflected, it had been announced that the ration has been reduced to 20 grams a week. Was it possible that they could swallow that after only 24 hours? Yes, they swallowed it, unquote.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Today's news roundup is purely local. You may have noticed that we haven't talked about Whiskey Mango Fuck Up, which I believe is the Secret Service name for Pete Hegseth. He's on his second major signal fuck up in 3 weeks. Plus, his hand-picked staff are being walked out of the Pentagon underguard faster than Chicago aldermen being perp walked out of City Hall. And then they're being interviewed about conditions at DOD.
Yeah, and they're talking.
And they're talking, and they're pissed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's incompetent, and we all know this.
And everybody knew it beforehand. Everyone knew this beforehand.
Everyone knew this.
This
Everyone
is not a surprise.
He was not competent to be on weekday Fox. So,
every Republican who voted for him knew this in advance. They fucking won.
But drift class, he went to Harvard.
Yes, he did.
Harvard Kennedy School of Government, I believe. Not undergraduate, but Kennedy School of Government. Well, what we're doing in local news today because of Hegseth's very good friend, Joey Jones. Back in November, here is what Joey Jones, who is a real person, had to say about his warrior brother, Hegseth. Quote, he's the kind of guy that worked in an industry known for insecurity and undercutting your peers and decided to be the opposite. From day one, he could have looked at me as another vet trying to poach his opportunities, but without hesitation, he chose to be a friend and mentor. I can't count the things that came my way because Pete sent them my way. From filling in for him on Fox and Friends, to asking me to pick up the mantle of his best-selling Modern Warriors book series, to picking up the phone when I needed advice about work, fatherhood, and faith. He's been there for me when he had no reason to. He's the kind of guy you want fighting for you and leading your sons and daughters. He'll make a great sec def, and to hell with the scum trying to smear him, unquote. Do you want to go on with this, Drift Glass?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Because if you've never heard of Joey, that's not really a surprise. He's a combat veteran and weekend Fox News goof. He's the sort of guy that Tomi Lahren brings on her show to explain the big words to her and explain why liberals are all devils. That's what he does. And Joey also has some very vivid opinions about Joe Biden. This is from August of 2021. Quote, Joe Biden, you have disgraced our people and dishonored our sacrifice. You're a weak, lying snake oil salesman, and we see you, unquote. From September of 2021, quote, if Joe Biden threatened the Taliban, though he just threatened Americans who don't want to wear a mask or get the vax, he might have ended the war in Afghanistan, unquote. So you get who Joey is, right? He is the perfect Fox News scumbag, who will also be the keynote speaker at the Sangamon County Republican Party's Lincoln Day dinner and fundraiser next month, right here in Springfield, Illinois. So, yay.
They do it every year. It's just amazing. Yay.
Last year, our local Republican Party hired Trump's chief deportation brown shirt, Tom Homan, to fire up the local meatheads and get them to empty their wallets to get Republicans elected. And I wrote about it on my blog. And the year before that, it was serial liar and David Pluff's podcast buddy, Kellyanne Conway. The year before that, it was Charlie Kirk, which I wrote about at the time. Before Chuckles Kirk, it was Candace Owens, which I also wrote about at the time. Before that, it was Jason Chaffetz, who was one-time congressperson and current Fox News troll, I think, who I believe now lives in Donald Trump's underwear drawer. And yep, wrote about that one too. The year before that, it was Fox News in-house train wreck and barfly, Janine Pirro, wrote about that. I believe she got a speeding ticket around here because she was doing like 190 miles an hour in her car and got pulled over. That was very exciting. The year before that, it was wingnut job hopper and H.R. Haldeman's stunt double, Corey Lewandowski. And the year before that, in 2016, it was none other than Fox News primetime Gorgon and Keith Olbermann's former girlfriend, Laura Ingraham. And on and on and on. And if you were ever curious about how we out here in the cornfields and the soybean fields have been so consistently dead on accurate for decades with our predictions about the trajectory of the GOP, while our elite professional political media has been so repeatedly and catastrophically wrong about the Republican Party, it's really very simple. Unlike our elite professional political media, we actually live out here in the real world, smack in the middle of real Republicans who have never been shy about what they really believe, and they're willing to tell you out loud and hang Trump signs from their trucks.
Yeah. And they're willing to clap for Tom Homan.
Yep.
At a chicken dinner.
Yep. And pay money. Pay a lot of money to go see him in person and clap and support this kind of Republican Party down here that loves them some Donald Trump and will never find fault with anything he does.
Now, the second story is pure Chicago politics, and it is so funny.
Yeah.
The Chicago Sun-Times politics blog, quote, "What's in a name?" In 2012, Republican Philip Spivak, a defeated Will County judicial candidate, changed his name to Shannon O'Malley. His new name was gender neutral and presumed to be more ethnically suited to Cook County elections. He was elected to the Cook County Circuit Court as a Democrat in 2018. All he did was change his name to Shannon O'Malley.
Oh, and his party affiliation.
Oh, and he changed. You didn't say that before. Oh, he's Republican. That's right, Republican. Yeah. Changed to a Democrat and changed his name to Shannon O'Malley, and he got elected.
Welcome to Chicago, honey. Mm-hmm.
In 2024, however, he failed to receive enough votes to be retained as a judge. He was also found to not live in Cook County.
That's the cherry on top.
Chef's kiss.
Absolutely.
Feel free to write to both of us at proleftpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go Postal Unions, letter on the air unless you say otherwise. Driftglass, we do have a letter to read.
Please.
This is a letter from Ross. Hi, Ross.
Hey, Ross.
Hi, DG and BG, longtime reader, listener, and supporter. Going back to before the late lamented Steve Gilliard sent Driftglass out to the indie blogging wilderness. I wanted to drop a brief note about what I saw today at the No Kings protest in a medium-sized city where I live, in the state where I live. Lots of energy, great signs. My youngest, who has autism, was very proud of his Donald Dump sign with the TR in Trump crossed out and retraced by a D. He pointed out to someone with a sign about RFK's autism comments that he can certainly play baseball. We are proud of your son, Ross.
We certainly are, Ross.
My sign was two-sided, and one side said the GOP supports all this madness.
Mm-hmm.
That brings me to something I saw on signs exclusively held by half a dozen or so older protesters over 60, I would guess, all saying a variation of Congress do your job or Congress grow a spine. I don't think I need to point out what is wrong with blaming Congress for what the Republicans do. Anyway, that jumped out at me, thanks in no small part to your years of making sure we look for the both sides lie. Thanks so much for the podcast and doing what you do, Ross. Thank you, Ross, for noting that.
Thank you, Ross. That really does make our day.
Yep.
I bet Ross shares our show on social media, Blue Gal. I bet he does that.
I bet he does.
And so be like Ross, people. Share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, please get someone else to love it too and listen. And thank you for doing that.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties are changing their names to Flannery Francis O'Finnegan and reminding all you kind souls out there in podcast land of our delicious whiskey guidelines. If you can afford to buy a dram of Ishkabah for yourself, buy a run for the house, you greedy bastards. God will love you for it. This is not a charity. This is our job, for God's sakes. So if you can spare $5 a month for a delicious dram of something delicious, please spare $5 a month at patreon.com/ProLeftPod. And thank you for doing that.
I don't know if I'll be able to call the Internet Kitties Flannery Francis O'Flanagan.
Oh, it's okay. It's just for the purpose of the ad, honey. As
for
in
the fundraiser ad.
As in Chicago politics, it's just for the purpose of getting into office. That's all
and
it
the
is.
Internet Kitties do live here
They
at
do.
DGBG headquarters.
They do.
See you Thursday.
See you Thursday.
Let's think about living.
Think about living.
Let's think about loving.
Think about loving.
Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the loving, lovey-dovey.
Lovey, lovey, lovey.
Let's forget about the wine and the crime, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with a switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.